A character arc is what happens when the world pushes on someone's inner struggle and they're forced to either grow or fall apart. That's the simplest way to put it. As I covered in a previous video, character arcs tend to be built around 3 different paths: false belief, faulty method, or tested belief. I recommend checking that video out if you haven't already. Whatever the path of the 3 your character is on, a proper character arc will go on this 6-path internal journey: foundation, disruption, resistance, fracture point, reckoning, and moment of truth. Across this video, I'll break down each of these 6 phases: what it is, what it looks like in a story, why it matters, and how it differs across belief types. So, if in-depth, practical, no-nonsense writing breakdowns are what you're looking for, you're in the right place. Before I start, a quick special thanks to these channel members, as they seriously help me out in little ways many don't know. As do any who comment and like all of this. You also know that this stuff is valuable to others. And now, without further ado, let's jump into understanding these 6 points. Part 1. Foundation. What it is. The foundation is the character's status quo belief system, the mental model or value they live by before the story's pressure begins. This belief shapes how they interpret events, make decisions, and see themselves. It is not questioned by the character here. It is seen as normal, right, necessary, or even sacred. It's the lens through which they view the world, and they aren't aware it's a lens at all. This is the truth they carry with them into the story, unaware that the story is going to test it, what it looks like in a story. We're introduced to the character in context, and that context reinforces their belief. Their actions make sense to them. They're confident, or at least familiar, in how they move through the world. They may explain or demonstrate the belief through dialogue, behavior, or internal monologue. And there's no real conflict between their inner world and the outer world yet. Or the conflict is just starting to quietly bubble beneath the surface. You're not just showing what they want. You're showing how they think the world works, or what they think is right, and why they believe it. Without a clear foundation, the rest of the arc has no weight. You need to show what's at stake internally, what's going to be tested, and what they have to lose or confront when things fall apart. Think of it like setting the anchor. If we don't know where they're starting from, we won't feel the impact of their shift, breakdown, or reaffirmation later. This is also your chance to establish theme through character, build reader empathy, and set up the tension for future disruption. Now, to note, there are common variances and nuances. The belief may be explicit, I have to be the best or I'm worthless, or subtle, helping others is just what you do. Some characters will preach their beliefs, others just live it quietly. It might be noble but fragile, arrogant but confident, naive but heartfelt. The foundation often includes supporting structures, mentors, routines, social roles, or environments that reinforce the belief and protect them from change. If you're writing a character-driven story, the foundation isn't just backstory. It's the present-day baseline we're about to disrupt. Now, as for how it differs by belief type, with the false belief, the belief is actively wrong, but makes sense to them. It's usually tied to fear, trauma, ego, or faulty logic. With faulty method, the belief is correct, but they've latched onto a harmful or ineffective way of living it. This often stems from insecurity, overcompensation, or misapplication. And in the case of tested belief, the belief is true and valuable, but they haven't faced real pressure to prove it yet. They're sincere but unproven, still in the ideal stage. Regardless, the foundation isn't just where you start, it's why their fall, evolution, or defiance means something. You don't need them to say their belief, but you do need the audience to feel it, and to recognize it when it's under threat. Part 2. Disruption. Disruption is the first hit. It's when the character's belief runs into something that doesn't fit. A crack forms. It's the first time that maybe, just maybe, their view of the world isn't as stable as they thought. The key here isn't just what happens, but how that event or shift introduces cognitive dissonance. It might be subtle. It might be seismic. but it's the beginning of internal discomfort. The character still clings to their belief, but now something's wrong. As for how this could look in a story, well, a situation occurs that challenges the character's core belief, either by contradiction, complication, or confrontation. They may rationalize it away, ignore it, or double down, but something has shifted internally, even if they won't admit it. A disruption might show up as a counterexample to what they believe, a personal failure they didn't expect, someone they respect calling them out, an emotional event they can't explain within their current worldview, or a cost to their actions they weren't prepared for. This phase is all about introducing friction between the belief and the real world. As for why this matters, disruption is essential because without it, the arc feels unearned. If you skip it, the shift later on feels abrupt or forced. But if you handle it right, you create that delicious feeling of pressure. The sense that the character is being slowly backed into a corner by reality. It also creates narrative suspense, begins to build the emotional stakes of the arc, and it gives your audience a mirror. You start questioning along the characters. Now, you might have multiple small disruptions or one big inciting blow, and the character can react with denial, that was a fluke, dismissal, they don't understand, or they might double down, that just proves I need to try harder, or maybe there's some quiet uncertainty. Why does this feel wrong? What matters is that you mark the beginning of the internal resistance that's coming. Think of disruption as a splinter. It doesn't break the belief, but it gets under the skin, and now it's going to fester. Now, this can manifest in different ways across the different belief types. With false belief, something directly contradicts what they believe, but they're not ready to let go. It could be a person living a different truth more successfully, or a failure that undermines their certainty. With faulty method, the belief still holds, but their current way of acting on it causes a problem. It may hurt someone, fail to deliver results, or backfire morally. And with tested belief, this one's subtler. The belief is challenged not because it's wrong, but because it's hard. The world starts to push back, and they feel the cost of holding onto their values. Whatever you do, disruption isn't just a plot point. It's the moment the war inside them starts. They don't know it yet, but the belief they've relied on is about to be put on trial. This phase is the subtle start of that trial, the first tremor before the quake. The third phase is resistance. This is the phase where the character fights to preserve their worldview. They don't want to change. Not really. They might say they're open-minded. They might adapt behavior slightly. But at their core, they're holding on to what they've always believed and trying to make that reality fit that belief. Resistance is a psychological recoil to dissonance. No, I don't need to change. I just need to double down. Try harder. Prove it still works. This is where they struggle to bend the world back into shape. But it won't bend. That's the whole point. Now, as for how this can look in a story, the character doubles down on what they believe. They explain away contradictions, often using justification, blame shifting, and passive avoidance. They may try a new tactic, but from the same belief system. This often leads to more fallout, more pressure, more cracks. This is where they're fighting against change, clinging to what's familiar, even as it's falling apart. Think of it as the "this still works, right?" phase, the last breath before surrender. As for why you need this phase grounds the arc in realism. Because people don't just flip their beliefs. They resist. They argue with themselves. They try to bend logic to their comfort zone. Without this phase, the arc feels too easy. The transformation lacks depth. The eventual shift, or failure, doesn't feel earned. Resistance makes the shift matter because it shows the emotional cost of change. If you do need to find ways to have your character resist, well, they do so typically through action and rationalization. They can overcompensate, trying even harder to prove their belief is right. They might give into controlling behavior, manipulating others to validate their views. They may dismiss people, events, and facts that contradict them. Or they may act or they may act out in frustration in unrelated ways. This is often the most dramatic phase of an arc, where they hurt people, lose something valuable, or sabotage themselves to avoid change. Of course, this can appear differently across the 3 different belief types. With false belief, the character scrambles to prove their belief still works, despite signs it doesn't. They may escalate their behavior in harmful ways. In faulty method, the belief is still good, but the tactic is failing, and they try to force it to work. They may ignore better options or alienate people they care about. With tested belief, this is where the character starts to feel the weight of their convictions. They may question if it's worth it, but they haven't let go yet. No matter what, resistance is the emotional climax before the breakdown. It's messy, frustrating, and deeply human. The audience might hate the characters here, or feel intensely for them, because this is where they reveal their deepest fear. What if I am wrong? What if this doesn't work? Who am I without this? And that fear sets us up perfectly for the fracture point. Part 4. Fracture point is the moment the belief finally breaks under pressure, or splinters just enough to force the character to see what they've been avoiding. It's the moment of emotional rupture, or clarity that makes change possible. Think of it as the psychological equivalent of a bone snapping. You can't walk the same way anymore, not until something heals or reshapes. This is where the denial collapses. They can no longer explain it away. The world has proven itself incompatible with the old way of thinking. As for how this looks in a story, a collapse, revelation, or consequence that shatters the character's sense of certainty that's often triggered by a devastating loss, betrayal, a truth exposed, or a moment where they realize they've become the thing they hate. They may break down, lash out, or go eerily quiet, but the shift is internal. They've seen the truth, and they can't unsee it. This isn't the full transformation yet, but that old belief, it's bleeding, maybe dying. Now, as for why this matters, without the fracture, change doesn't feel necessary. Fracture point is the emotional rock bottom. It signals that what comes before won't work anymore. It sets the stage for a meaningful earned transformation. It anchors the moment of truth that's coming next. This is where your character finally becomes willing to change, or in the case of a tragedy, where they refuse to, and the story shifts towards their downfall. So, at this point, one or more of these become clear. I was wrong. I hurt someone. I can't do this anymore. I don't know who I am. Everything I believed, it didn't save me. Or, in tragic arcs, I don't care anymore. The world is broken, not me. I'll prove I was right, even if it kills me. It's the emotional crucible, where pain forces clarity. As for how this can differ across the belief types, with false belief, the evidence is undeniable. They see how wrong they were. This could result in guilt, regret, grief, or horror. With faulty method, they realize their belief still matters, but they've been going about it the wrong way, often marked by internal shame, I should have known better. And with tested belief, they almost break and question if it's worth it, but they hang on by a thread. The fracture here is more of a moral gut check. Am I willing to pay the cost of staying true to what I believe? No matter what, the fracture point is where we finally see the raw character. No masks, no defenses, just a soul cornered by life, forced to confront the core of who they are. This is the payoff of all the pressure. It's not the moment they change, it's the moment they realize they can't go on like this. Whether they evolve or not, that's what the reckoning is for. Part 5. Reckoning is the integration phase. It's where the character, in the aftermath of the fracture, has to sit with the truth and make sense of who they are now. It's not just about seeing what's broken, it's about deciding what comes next. This is the soul's aftermath. Not just, what now, but what was all of that, and what am I going to become? They're staring at the internal wreckage. They may not like what they see, but it's the first honest view they've had of themselves all story. As for what this could look like in a story, characters may go quiet, reflect, or retreat for a moment of solitude. Or they may have a direct confrontation, not with someone else, but with themselves. You'll often see a flashback recontextualized, a talkative foil or mentor who holds up a mirror, a symbolic act like destroying something they've clung to, or a clear choice between two paths. The important thing? They're not reacting anymore. They're processing, deciding, owning. It's the pause before the final leap, the deep breath before the last move. And without this, the character arc feels rushed or undeserved. You need this moment because it's the first time the character acts with clarity rather than delusion. It's the point where the internal journey catches up with the external plot, and it gives the moment of truth its meaning, because the character chooses it. This is where the arc transitions from reaction to intention. Oh, and for those wondering what their internal monologue looks like, whether spoken or not, what have I done? What do I want now? How do I want to be? What matters now that I know? This is a space for vulnerability, not melodrama. Stillness, not chaos. The storm passed. This is what's left behind. As for how this can differ by belief types, with false belief, they fully understand how their belief failed them and others. They take accountability, or begin to. With faulty method, they recognize the belief was good, but they corrupted it or held it too tightly. This is a refining moment, not an abandoning one. And with tested belief, they see the cost of staying true, and they accept it. This isn't change, it's commitment. A steel spine forged through fire. Basically, reckoning is the heart of ownership. It's where the character finally chooses who they're going to be, not because they were forced to, but because they finally understand. If the fracture point is when the belief broke, the reckoning is where that new self gets formed. Quietly, honestly, painfully. This is where courage begins. And that brings us to the final piece, the moment of truth, where it all gets tested. Part 6. The moment of truth is the final internal test, where the character must take action or inaction that reflects who they've become. This isn't just a payoff, it's a mirror held up to their entire arc. The decisions made here are meaningful because of what they've endured. If the reckoning was quiet reflection, the moment of truth is the outward expression of that choice. It's not always loud or explosive, it's just undeniable. This is when the audience goes, yes, that's who they are now, or damn, they didn't change at all. Nagi. As for what this looks like in the story, the character is presented with a crucible moment. Do they lie again or tell the truth? Do they protect themselves or risk it all? Do they act with fear or integrity? They're given the chance to fall back on the old belief or act from a new one. This could manifest as a sacrifice, a confrontation, a letting go, a final stand, or even a small quiet decision. The kind that only matters because we've lived in their head long enough to know what it costs. As for why this matters, this step is the proof of arc. Without it, all the internal work collapses. The character's growth becomes hypothetical. You need to see them live out what they've learned, or tragically, fail to. This moment answers, did they actually change? It gives us catharsis or heartbreak. It makes the arc feel earned. This is a place for your story's most emotionally resonant moment. Not always the biggest, but the most felt. As for some coarse statements the moment of truth expresses, I finally understand what matters. I was wrong, and I won't make that mistake again. I'll take the hit, because it's the right thing. I can't live that way anymore. This is who I am now. Or in tragedy, I don't care what it cost. I'm sticking to it. I was right all along, and they'll all see. I'd rather burn than bend. As for how this can manifest across the different belief types, with the false belief, they act in a new way that directly contradicts the old belief. With faulty method, they still believe in the same thing, but now they do it in the right way. And with tested belief, they hold their ground, despite risk or pain. No matter what, the moment of truth is what the entire arc builds towards. It's a decision that makes or breaks everything. It's not just a choice, it's the echo of their entire journey. And whether the character rises, falls, or stands firm, this is where the audience feels it. This is the moment they know That's what all this was really about. The internal arc is done. The belief has been faced. The pressure has made its mark. They're not who they were. They can't be. Now, at this point, you have the foundation for the internal plotline, and the problem itself has been outlined in a previous video. What comes next is a matter of what to do. What comes next is the matter of what do you focus on now in particular when plotting out stuff. Which brings us to genre and my theories on that. As I've discussed in the past, I split genre into two sections: narrative expectations and environmental aesthetic. I'll go into greater detail on narrative expectations in the next video, as I've cleaned up that a great deal. If you want to see my past work on that, here's the video, and if you want to know when that video comes out, press the subscribe button so that you know when the video drops.